Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. President Trump says the U.S. has reached a deal on TikTok with China. He will speak to Chinese leader Xi Jinping to confirm. A look at the hurdles still facing the deal.
We made a very good trade deal, and I hope good for both countries, but a very different deal than they'd made in the past.
The U.S. is pushing back as China expands its global control over ports. It's raising national security concerns in America. We take a closer look at Beijing's maritime expansion and how the U.S. is responding. Among its target. President Trump says the U.S. and China have reached a deal on TikTok. However, key issues, such as whether the algorithm will be transferred and whether China will retain partial ownership, remain unclear.
We have a deal on TikTok. I've reached a deal with China. I'm going to speak to President Xi on Friday to confirm everything up. We made a very good trade deal, and I hope good for both countries, but a very different deal than they'd made in the past.
The president says there's a group of very big companies that want to buy TikTok, but he didn't go into the details. TikTok's fate has been up in the air since last year. The U.S. passed a law requiring the app to divest from its Chinese owner or face a ban. President Trump extended the deadline 4 times, with the latest deadline expiring this December. The U.S. Treasury Secretary and Trade Representative have been negotiating the deal with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng. They reached a framework deal on Monday. Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping are now expected to finalize the deal this Friday. There are still questions and hurdles surrounding the deal. One of them is whether the Republican-controlled Congress will approve the deal. Also, it's unclear if China will keep a stake in TikTok. President Trump said he hasn't decided on that. And lastly, who will take control of the app? Trump hasn't named the potential buyers. Oracle stock rose 5% on Tuesday. The company is considered to be one of the front runners. The U.S. wanted to ban TikTok over concerns that Beijing could use the app to spy on Americans. TikTok has 170 million American users. Trump says TikTok has a place in his heart. The app helped him reach young voters during the election. The Justice Department sued TikTok and its Chinese parent company last year. It alleged the app collected information from children under the age of 13 without the consent of their parents. The U.S. government also accused TikTok of knowingly allowing children to create standard TikTok accounts instead of kids' accounts. As a result, millions of American children under the age of 13 use the app to interact with adult users and access adult content. TikTok denies any wrongdoing. President Donald Trump is in the United Kingdom for his second state visit. He arrived on Tuesday. He will be greeted by King Charles on Wednesday at Windsor Castle. The two nations will seal deals worth more than $10 billion.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer hopes US President Donald Trump's state visit will strengthen economic ties while deflecting attention from controversies. Trump arrives on Tuesday for a visit including royal pageantry, investment talks and trade agreements.
They want to see if they can refine the trade deal a little bit. We made a deal, and it's a great deal. And I'm into helping them. Our country is doing very well. We've never done this well. We're having trillions of dollars coming because of the tariffs. And they'd like to see if they could get a little bit better deal, so we'll talk to them.
The focus will be on deals, including a $10 billion package in energy and technology and a transatlantic task force to boost financial cooperation. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves and US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent are expected to announce partnerships in civil nuclear power, defence technology and science.
We know that the UK government is keen to keep the focus of this state visit on deals, partnerships that are focused on benefits for the UK and the UK economy. They'll probably try to steer the conversation away from knottier issues like Ukraine or the UK's stated intention to potentially recognise the state of Palestine in a few weeks at the UN General Assembly.
Starmer, under pressure after sacking Peter Mandelson as US ambassador over Epstein ties, will be hoping to showcase his close relationship with Trump as a benefit to Britain.
The White House is asking for enhanced security for elected officials after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Precautions are also being made for President Trump's overseas trips. He's in the UK today and will soon travel to South Korea.
On Tuesday, President Trump arrived in the United Kingdom for his second state visit. One security expert says a security review was necessary after Charlie Kirk was assassinated last week.
The recent shooting of Charlie Kirk will initiate a review of all the security arrangements. So a review of the routes being taken, the premises, the residents they're staying at, looking at any buildings that overlook those areas, line of sight, etc.
Last year, on the campaign trail, President Trump was targeted in multiple assassination attempts.
Mr. Trump has his own threats and risks, etc., from the assassination attempt we saw previously. And you also have to gauge the current mood, threat from counter-terror to terror organisations, homegrown terrorists, domestic organisations, etc.
Now, the U.S. Secret Service and British police are working together closely to address any potential threat.
Police monitor online traffic, again speaking with their American counterparts because we can't monitor all their sites as well, but they'll collate all that information. So the intelligence teams and the intelligence professionals will look at those threats, put an enhanced or professional view on it and assess it accordingly.
Reports say enhanced security will be in place at Windsor and Chequers, and new technology, including drones, is being considered. President Trump is scheduled to attend the APEC summit in South Korea in late October. Washington is eyeing a potential meeting there between President Trump and Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese regime. But according to the Wall Street Journal, China has been pushing hard for Trump to visit China instead, in what would be a high-profile political win for the Chinese Communist Party.
The state of Utah has announced 7 charges against Tyler Robinson, the suspect accused of shooting Charlie Kirk. This is Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray detailing the charges.
Count 1, aggravated murder, a capital offense for intentionally or knowingly causing the death of Charlie Kirk under circumstances that created a great risk of death to others. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony. The state is further alleging aggravating factors on counts 1 and 2 because the defendant is believed to have targeted Charlie Kirk based on Charlie Kirk's political expression and did so knowing that children were present and would witness the homicide. The state is also charging defendant with count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for moving and concealing the rifle used in the shooting. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony for disposing the clothing he wore during the shooting. Count 5, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to delete his incriminating texts. Count 6, witness tampering, a third-degree felony for directing his roommate to stay silent if police questioned him. And count 7, commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor, for committing homicide knowing that children were present and may have seen or heard the murder and did so based on Charlie Kirk's political expression.
The attorney says Robinson will continue to be held without bail at the Utah County Jail. The attorney says investigators found words etched onto the ammunition in the suspect's rifle.
The fired cartridge was etched, "No Tice's bulge, OWO, what's this?" The second cartridge that was again not spent, the last 3 were not spent, were not fired. The second, "Hey fascist, catch," with arrow symbols. The third cartridge, oh Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Ciao Ciao. The fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO.
Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray says he will seek the death penalty in the case. He added, quote, "It is a decision I have made independently as county attorney based solely on the available evidence and circumstances and nature of the crime." The FBI is scrutinizing online accounts alleged to have signaled some awareness of Charlie Kirk's assassination before it happened. The Epoch Times says multiple accounts on X and TikTok identified by the Washington Free Beacon are being looked at. According to screenshots highlighted by the Washington Free Beacon, one post from an X account mentioned the date of Kirk's assassination 1 week before it happened. Another X account wrote in August that September 10th will be a very interesting day. After the assassination, it quote tweeted that post, writing, "I plead the 5th." An X account that reposted it has a similar handle to a TikTok account that appears to follow suspect Tyler Robinson's roommate. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino said that the FBI is looking into other possible accomplices in the assassination of Kirk. Authorities also say they now have DNA evidence and text messages revealing a potential motive for the killer. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise is calling on political officials and the media to self-reflect in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. He says we all have a part to play in stopping a cycle of hatred that's formed out of political differences.
When you look at just this example with Charlie, and there's been some studies that have been done that have taken, just for example, President Trump and the word fascism. One network alone used that combination of words over 3,000 times. 3,000 times, mainstreaming that combination of words in just the last 3 years. And whether some realize it or not, that magnification is heard by the wrong person. We can all do our part to not allow that kind of hateful speech to become mainstream and stand up against it so that we don't see this become the norm in America. It's not who America is. We are not a nation that settles our differences with violence. We settle our political differences at the ballot box, and that's the way it always has to be for a free and fair democratic society to endure.
A reporter asked House Speaker Mike Johnson how to balance protecting free speech while also addressing violent rhetoric. Johnson urged government agencies and personal companies to be vigilant about holding their employees accountable for personal behavior and decorum. The U.S. sees China's rapidly growing control of global ports as a serious national security risk. Officials worry that Beijing could use these ports for espionage, military advantage, or to disrupt supply chains during a geopolitical crisis. The Trump administration is now pushing to loosen China's grip on the global port network. It's America's most ambitious effort to expand U.S. maritime influence since the 1970s. According to Reuters, the Trump administration is aiming to weaken China's global network of ports and bring more strategic terminals under Western control. One approach the U.S. is considering is introducing policies that support private American firms in acquiring Chinese stakes in ports. For example, U.S. investment firm BlackRock has proposed deals to buy ports in 23 countries from Hong Kong's C.K. Hutchison, including the Panama Canal. Washington is also eyeing Chinese maritime infrastructure in Greece, Spain, the Caribbean, and U.S. West Coast ports. For example, Chinese state-owned COSCO Shipping Holdings owns a 67% stake in Greece's Piraeus port. COSCO is China's largest port and shipping group. Piraeus is one of Europe's busiest ports. It's a key gateway between Asia and Europe. As part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, it provides Beijing with a strategic hub for moving goods into Europe and supporting China's naval operations in the region. Back in January, the Pentagon blacklisted COSCO for its ties to the Chinese military. In recent years, China has been expanding its maritime influence. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, Beijing has investments in 129 port projects worldwide as of August 2024. The The U.S. Navy estimates that China's shipbuilding industry is about 230 times larger than America's shipyard capacity. This means that the U.S. commercial shipping fleet is not ready to provide support for the military should a war break out. The Trump administration is now aiming to boost U.S. maritime power by ramping up domestic shipbuilding. Last month, South Korea agreed to a $150 billion shipbuilding investment deal in exchange for lower U.S. tariffs on Korean imports. And in April, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at bringing back domestic shipbuilding jobs and restoring America's maritime dominance. China is expanding its transnational repression efforts. It's introduced a new law that aims to silence anyone around the world who questions it. That includes foreign citizens living outside of China. The law encourages what the CCP calls the promotion of ethnic unity and progress. Terms like ethnic unity, patriotism, and motherland often appear in Chinese propaganda. China affairs commentators say the CCP uses these terms to brainwash people and control narratives. Take Taiwan as an example. One argument the CCP uses to justify its plans to annex the island is ethnic unity. That's despite the fact that the Chinese regime has never ruled the self-governed island. Back to the bill, the new act targets any organization or individual who engages in activities that the regime deems as a threat. That includes those living outside of China's borders. Violators face criminal penalties under the act. But how could China punish foreigners who are protected by rights like freedom of speech? After all, foreign citizens are protected by their country's own laws. Well, this could be part of the communist regime's broader plan. Xi Jinping is now pushing for global governance. He discussed the plan with the leaders of dozens of countries at a summit just a few weeks ago. He proposed using China's political and economic influence to expand its global presence and challenge the current U.S.-led world order. Coming up, China is keeping a closer eye on Chinese nationals working at foreign embassies. What's behind it? That and more in just a minute here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Chinese nationals working at foreign embassies in China are facing new regulations. The Chinese regime's administrative body, the State Council, announced the rules on Monday. Foreign embassies will only be allowed to hire Chinese nationals who have been approved by Beijing. The employees will still be under supervision of the Chinese Foreign Ministry even after entering into contracts with the foreign embassy. There will also be scrutiny from China's law enforcement, state security, and tax departments. Experts say the rule is part of Beijing's effort to stop Chinese people from leaking intelligence to other countries. The new rule is set to take effect on January 1st, 2026. And finally, we turn back to the United States for a closer look at the latest developments from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rates at its policy meeting tomorrow. The move would mark the central bank's first rate cut since last December. Experts say it's almost certain that the Fed will cut rates by a 1/4 percentage point tomorrow. The current target range is 4.25 to 4.5%. In addition to a rate decision, policymakers will also release an update to their policy expectations and forecasts for the broader economy, including GDP, unemployment, and inflation. The Senate has narrowly confirmed senior White House economic advisor Stephen Miran to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Senators voted 48 to 47 to approve his nomination, giving him an immediate say in Fed policy when the central bank meets this week. Miran replaces Fed Governor Adriana Kugler. She resigned last month. He will serve until January 2026. Stephen Miran is the key figure behind the proposed Mar-a-Lago Accord, a new trade and currency strategy under the current Trump administration. Democrats argue Miran will act as President Trump's proxy at the Fed, undermining the central bank's independence. Miran says he will remain independent, taking unpaid leave from the White House while serving at the central bank. And that's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. Round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.